Okay, so I am now trying to close all of the things happening here. Um, I've posted the live stream both on YouTube and on Patreon, and I think we're starting. As per usual, I am kind of dealing with the fact that there's a very low flying plane making the dog bark. But otherwise, I'm here by myself, and that is not a great live stream. So I am waiting for folks to show up. And if they don't show up, I will only do this for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the most. I'm using a random question generator, which is randomwordgenerator.com/question. Because if I'm going to ask questions, there's somebody here. Hi, John. Um, it might just be us. Is definitely I'm just gonna unless there's actually questions in the chat, I'm gonna put questions in. I'm gonna just answer the random questions that are in the lovely random generator. So I'm very excited that I've got one participant. And let's talk nerdy. Heck yeah. So let's look at the first. I'm just going to give you some updates on what's going on with me. I am teaching classes at morbidanatomy.org, and I'm in the midst of a class right now called Grim Grim, which is dark fairy tales and women's trauma. I have another class coming up in September that is the monstrous feminine. And there is a free event on September 9th where I'm talking about the connection between the monstrous feminine and the unicorn. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the whole reason why I'm doing the monstrous feminine is because it came up so frequently in the unicorn class. So because the unicorn class was kind of where the monstrous feminine came from, that is what kind of created that new class. And I thought that would be a fun way to do the live event. One of the random questions that is on this random generator is, what is an interesting fact that you recently learned? I learn a lot of facts because I'm doing research right now. The thing that I'm researching, the paper I'm researching, is for Advanced Unicorn Theory. It's one of the chapters that I'm writing. Basically, with Advanced Unicorn Theory, I am filling in the gaps that haven't been filled in by other writers who've put in anything. So the dozen or so writers have their ideas and where I feel like there still really needs to be something, I am doing that. And so I have 2 chapters that I'm writing in addition to the introduction. One of the chapters is the one that I'm researching and writing right now, hopefully to finish by that chapter is actually looking at the unicorn, a monster theory lens. So a lot of what I've been doing has been monster theory. All the research that I've been doing has been more around monster theory than anything. That also kind of goes into the monstrous feminine course that I'm teaching. The monstrous feminine, there's this whole concept of this word called abjection, which is the abject, like the thing that is rejected, that is like we set it away from ourselves and we want to be in denial about it, and it is icky and not to be accepted. And much of the monstrous feminine is around the abjection. So the most abject thing is the corpse. But other abject things would be things like blood and menstrual blood and menstruation and childbirth and all of the things that have to do with our bodies. And so toilet stuff is also all abjection. And so that's why in horror films the monstrous feminine is often kind of surrounded by, like, if you think about Carrie and the blood scene, um, that is an example of abjection and of the monstrous feminine. So that's kind of where my brain is right now. That's what I'm reading a lot about and what I'm thinking a lot about. Just so you know, in terms of the unicorn is the opposite of a monster. It is the opposite of the abject. It is purifying as opposed to polluting. And the more I dig into the monster theory of it, the more I'm like, it's an anti-monster, which is really fascinating. Um, so that is the chapter that I'm writing right now. Um, I'm having some weird delays on my computer. I'm hoping that the delays aren't causing any major hiccups for everybody else. Um, there's not a whole lot I can do about it, but let's just pick another random question. And one of these questions is, what piece of art has thank you for letting me know there's only been a couple glitches. It's been a little weird on my side. Um, what piece of art has a large impact on you, has had a large impact on you? And as far as pieces of art go, um, I think the biggest emotional impact of a piece of art is a part of the permanent Atlanta High Museum of Art. And it is a bronze statue that was created, and it's a self-portrait of the artist. However, it is a woman who is portraying herself as a minotaur. And it is really arresting and very fascinating. And I took a picture of it, but like I could have stood and looked at that for hours. Like it's very moving. And it's moving from the perspective of the myth itself, as well as the perspective that the artist actually brought to it. I did a lot of research around the artist and what she was going for, um, because I found it so moving. And if you ever have a chance to see it, I would love to know what you think of it, because it's a very interesting piece of sculpture. Um, let's just pick a another one. Um, very silly one is, what animal do you think best reflects your personality? I have a lot of animal teachers that I have been reached out to in various ways throughout my life, and they kind of all do. Uh, but I think it depends on the day. I think it depends on the situation. Um, I'm gonna go with bear, but I could be persuaded against it. So I don't know. I'm gonna go with bear though. Um, so let's do, what is something that you would be willing to stay up all night to do, is one of these random questions. And the answer to that is absolutely nothing. There is the My sleep is valuable. Um, my sleep means more to me than anything. No, it's you staying up all night just kind of ruins your brain, and you eat like crap, and it's being robbed of sleep is a form of torture. And I don't think there is anything that I would be willing to stay up all night to do. I honestly can't think of something on off like, short of like sitting on somebody's like hospital bedside. Like, I don't think there's anything I would be willing to do that for. And even then, I'd steal some Z's in my little hard hospital chair. John has asked, "What would I give a TED Talk about?" And I actually want to give a TED Talk. I have 2 TED Talks in mind. I had just doing some research about more public speaking and about pitching TED Talks. I don't think I've fully conceptualized what those talks are enough to actually pitch them. But they're in my brain and they're on the list. One of the TED Talks I could give and could probably give it today, if be burnout, and on how we misconceptualize burnout, and um, how the path from burnout recovery is different from the way most people think it is, and how most people try to sell it as. Um, so that's one TED Talk I would give. The other TED Talk I would love to give is one about storytelling. And so right now, I have decided that I don't want to publish my dissertation as it is. I want my dissertation to stand as the research and the research journey and let it be that. And then I want to take all of the findings from that research and all of the so what, all of the TLDR from that research, and make that a nonfiction book. And the crux of that nonfiction book is what I want to give a TED Talk about. I want to create that book, and that's the TED Talk that, like, I want to be on the main TED stage, not just TEDx, you know? Like, that's probably the one that I would want to build that TED Talk around. And that's more around storytelling and around the rules and roles and responsibilities of storytellers, and the consequences that happen when you break those rules and what happens. Um, so it's been really interesting to realize that I'm kind of on the verge of some sort of discovery within myself. I've been in Jungian terms, I've been circumnavigating something or circumambulating something. Basically, Jung talks a lot about mandalas where you like are drawing or coloring in circles. But also around the idea of like just walking around the problem a lot, like walking circles around the problem. And I feel like all of my work right now is circumambulating the same concept over and over again, and that I'm narrowing in on the next big thing I'm going to work on. I'm honing in on it. I haven't gotten there yet, but what I feel like is that, and I just wrote about this in my most recent blog post, where I feel like I'm looking at the same topic over and over again through a kaleidoscope and just like kind of picking out different elements of it and different facets, and then kind of zooming in on something in that way. I feel like I'm about to take the kaleidoscope away and just look at the thing and be able to really articulate and do something with that thing, whether that be classes or whether it would be um, a book or both, or who knows. But I do feel like I'm zooming in a little bit, or zooming out, I guess. And I'm circling this idea, and that eventually I'm going to have clarity around it, and I'm very excited about that. Right now, the idea is around that like connecting thread that I've talked about, which is the idea that telling and retelling stories has a healing effect if you follow the rules. And so like I have to write the story about the rules so that I can have that conversation. But the healing part is the important part. And everything that I'm doing right now is around healing. And like the class that I'm teaching right now is very healing focused. Um and I feel like I'm closing in on an idea there. I haven't yet, but I feel like I'm sidling up to it sideways. When I was a kid, I'm gonna tell story time. When I was a kid, I lived in the middle of nowhere and I was bored a lot. And I had a game that I had invented, and it was essentially attempting to be a Disney princess. Um, what I would do, and this is when I was like maybe 10, 11. What I would do is try to get as close as I humanly possibly could to the wild rabbits that lived in my yard. And I learned a lot from observing my horse and how the horses communicated with each other via little huffs and puffs of breath, and how they would go from having like a soft gaze that wasn't looking at anything in particular, but kind of looking at the whole room, versus a really pointed gaze where they're like trying to get a good look at you. And what I realized is that I could kind of use those tools with trying to get as close to the rabbits as possible. So what I would do is I would sit and I'd get real comfy and I'd be in like my lotus position. Basically, I basically taught myself yoga, more or less. But I would sit in my lotus position and I would soften my gaze so that I could see the rabbits and I could see the whole yard, but I wasn't pinpointed looking at them. Because what I realized was that pinpoint gaze is a predator gaze. That's what predators do. They're like, oh, that's the thing I'm going to catch and I'm going to pounce on it. And we can tell the difference between a soft gaze that's not looking at us or just kind of like is aware of us, but not really like zoomed in on us, versus that pinpoint predator gaze. And prey animals 100% can tell that difference in the gaze. So I would do a really soft, wide open gaze where I was trying to take in as much of the yard as possible without directly looking at any one thing specifically. And then I would really focus on my breath, because the horses would breathe really soft and slow. And that's how they would like tell each other, it's okay, everything's okay, because they would breathe really slowly. And so that was like like if something was an alert thing, they would huff and they'd go poof with a little puff of air. And if they were really upset, or they would snort, right? And so you wanted those long, slow breaths that said, everything's fine. We're all fine. Everything's good. And so I would sit in my yard in the grass in the lotus position with a soft gaze and breathe really, really softly and wait for these rabbits to be like, oh, she's not a big deal, and come up to me. And it was this whole like thing that I did like repeated times. Like I did it multiple times. And every single time that I did it, they would get just a little bit closer. And the closest, just so you know, the closest they ever got was about a foot away from my knees. They came pretty close to me for wild rabbits. Like these are wild freaking rabbits. Like that's amazing. And these weren't babies. Like baby rabbits are kind of dundery and they'll come up to you. These weren't babies. These were adult wild rabbits, and they knew to be shy of humans, and they still came within a foot or so of my knee. And like I said, I was trying to be a Disney princess and I succeeded. But the whole reason why I'm telling this story is because that's what I feel like I'm doing with this idea. I feel like there is an idea that is a wild bunny that I want it to come up to me and jump in my lap. And I am desperate for that, just like I was when I was a 12-year-old kid waiting for wild bunnies. And I feel like I just have to be quiet and patient and have my soft gaze and walk around and circumnavigate and be as content with where I am as I can be, and breathe and be patient, and the bunny will jump in my lap. That's my belief, and that's what I feel like I'm doing right now. I feel like I'm waiting for the rabbit to approach me itself, like this little shy fuzzy bunny. So that's where I am. That's what I feel like I'm doing. I feel like I'm I write a lot about unicorns, but the best way to catch a unicorn is unique up on it. And I feel like I'm sneaking up on something. Um, it's John in the chat, so I had to make a bad joke. Um, otherwise, otherwise, I feel like that's kind of where I am creatively. I did realize that the whole reason why I stopped working full time was so that I could write more creatively, and I haven't been as much. And so this week I've really been focused on finishing some creative projects. I have a I just saw your return. Um, um I have number of creative projects that I'm working on right now. I have a novella so this novella is bananas. It's very ridiculous. It is a romance, which I don't write romance very well. So I'm learning romance as I edit and kind of attempting to like figure out the romance plot. But it's also a concept that I originally wrote on a word processor in the dorm in my college years. Like I wrote this when I was 20. Um I in 2002 or so, I got a hold of this of another old word processor, and I printed out all of the documents that were on those diskettes that were only ever they were like the little 3-inch diskettes that were the only able to be used by like the brother word processor. And this was like I couldn't transfer the data over to like a Microsoft Word. So what I did is I literally printed out absolutely everything from those diskettes and then decided what to do with it. And this story was one of the things that I printed out. And what I ended up doing was like moving it into the Microsoft world and then like editing it and coming up with like where it needed to be like as a better story. And I did that. I want to say I did that in like 2011, 2012. Like I think I moved it into a Word document much earlier, but I didn't actually edit it and do anything with it until like the 2010s, 20 teens. And so this story's been around for like 20 years in my head. So I've been editing this novella. It's like 22,000 words. It's probably going to end up closer to 25. But I've been editing this novella and writing it and rewriting it since junior year of college. So that would be what, 1996, 95, 96. So, yeah, it's been like 30 years, this little novella. The little novella that could. It's actually one of the first things that I wrote ever as like a story. I also wrote a short story that became the novel that I wrote in 2010 on the same word processor. And that ended up being trunked because it was depressing. It was about a pandemic. And by the time I was finally feeling like I could do it again, it was out of date. So that's just permanently trunked. I might repurpose some of the chapters as short stories or novellas, but yeah, that one's probably pretty much dead. I do have still some story ideas that I grabbed from that word processor that still kind of float around my works in progress folders. Just kind of like snippets and ideas and scenes and like little bits of dialogue and stuff like that. But so that's one of the things I'm creatively working on. One of the things I'm creatively working on is I finished so last year I had a novel edited professionally, and I've yet to read all of her remarks because I just haven't had the brain space because I've been working on the dissertation. And that's coming back around. So one of the things that I'm doing is ripping out an entire subplot and that subplot is going to become a novella, and I think I can do that novella pretty quickly without a lot of the like structure of the novel. Like I have to add in some world building and a little bit of character, but like it's kind of standalone until the very end. And so I feel like if I can like get the ending and the beginning together, I can knock this novella out pretty quickly. And then I really want to get this novel, a fourth draft of the novel, written by the end of the year. Um, so those are the creative things that I'm spending time on, because I want to spend time on that, because that's the whole reason why I started this path. And I want to honor that. So we're now at the half-hour mark. John, thank you for attending. I really appreciate it. You've sat next to the abyss with me. I very much appreciate your attendance. We still need, I still owe you a Zoom. So we need to schedule a Zoom anyway. And I'm going to actually post this as a recording, because why not? Maybe someone will watch it. Who knows? And we will see you next time. Heck, maybe next month's live stream I'll get 2 people. All right, thank you, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye.